Soldier 76 has gotten buffed and he's incredibly powerful. So in this video, we're going to be breaking down everything you need to know about how to master Soldier as quickly as possible so you can climb the ranked ladder. But do me a huge solid and smash that like, subscribe, and if you want private coaching, links will be in the description down below. And let's jump into it. Now, Soldier 76 plays a lot different than every single other hit scan in the game, and we're going to break down the strategy behind Soldier, why he's good, how you should position and play, and things that you can do to win every single 1v1. But before that, let's break down each and every one of his abilities and give you tips on each one. Now, the biggest thing about Soldier that got buffed is his primary fire. No longer very difficult to control the recoil, while it's still going to take a bit of practice compared to some other long distance hit scans that you're used to. Soldier 76 is going to be fairly easy to track a target, meaning you're going to have more damage on average, and in the hands of an expert aimer, higher potential burst damage. Now, his Helix Rocket is going to do 120 damage with a direct shot. It's going to have splash damage, and you're going to be able to combine it with the melee for a 150 damage, which is a common combo that you see up against Tracer players, for instance, where you set a trap for them up in a 1v1. They want to come in close to actually deal damage to you, and you can one-shot them out of nowhere. And oftentimes, when you see them at this threshold, it's a good combo to keep in the back of your mind. Now, in addition to that, the Helix Rocket is going to create some amount of CC on the target, booping them upwards and out if you do it on the ground. And this is going to be really advantage for you as Soldier, because not only does that mess up their aim, but it allows you to track them easier because they are going to be mid-air. So this is going to be a great combo that you're going to utilize to help you duel your enemies. Now, the most important aspect of this ability is the fact that it's on an only 6-second cooldown, meaning that you can use it a lot to actually utilize Soldier's #1 hit and run strategy, but we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Now, Soldier's sprint ability is unique in the fact that it just doesn't run out. You could use it whenever, and it's on no cooldown, and this is one of your key tools to enable your strategy and allow you to run away from situations very easily. On top of that, his biotic field is one of his most powerful abilities, if not one of the most powerful abilities in the game, capable of giving you your own form of self-sustain, allowing you to take 1v1s with an advantage, hold angles for much longer than other DPS, and even help your teammates out. But last but certainly not least, we do got to talk about the tactical visor, something that you can headshot with now as of Overwatch 2. If you track the opponent's head, you're going to get extra damage with it, and this is a fantastic ability to close out a fight, especially if you have some sort of vantage like the high ground, or you have some form of movement like a Kitsune Rush or a Lucio Speed Boost to help you catch up to enemies that are trying to kite your line of sight or back up away from it. Now, the first thing that you need to master on Soldier is his tactics, because many Soldier players will be playing around or by their team, and they'll be shooting the enemy Orisa or the enemy Rhine, and this is absolutely not what you should be doing on Soldier 76. Soldier wants to incorporate a guerrilla warfare style of strategy, meaning that he can either, one, execute a hit and run strategy where he utilizes his mobility and his helix to go at an opponent from an off angle or from a flank, burst them down out of nowhere when they're not prepared for you, and then run away to safety without getting traded out. Or two, you can occupy at high ground, an off angle or a flank, just applying pressure to the enemy backline purely because you can maintain those positions without enemies easily able to move you from those positions. Let's directly compare Soldier to a lot of other long distance DPS without a support if they're playing the high ground or they're playing an off angle aggressively. If a Cassidy takes some damage, or an Ashe, or maybe it's even a Hanzo, these characters have to back up, go get some heals at a certain point, because these characters can't sustain themselves in the same way that Soldier can with his biotic field. So Soldier can stay out and play these angles a lot longer than other characters, when those characters would normally have to run away or get some extra resources by your team. In addition to that, Soldier has the means to reposition at a moment's notice. Because of that sprint that is never on a cooldown, he can traverse the map, wrap around, run away, and he's really great at either deciding to stand his ground and fight, where he's fantastic at dueling, and we'll talk about that more in a second, or run away if the opponent wants to invest multiple resources into chasing him off that high ground or contesting him on the flank. They're still not going to be able to get your life because you can simply leave. So a fantastic Soldier will really ignore the enemy tank for the most part, unless they're super out of position, putting a lot of pressure into any low targets he sees and creating a ton of pressure on the enemy backline and support. Support players cannot have their passive triggered, their passive healing when they're constantly taking damage, and Soldier can keep them in check, not to mention if they run away or in fixed position or they are not focusing on the Soldier can combine his low static pressure with burst damage from that cooldown Helix rocket. Now, speaking of Soldier's cooldowns, let's talk about how to use them most efficiently so that you can carry team fights. Sprint is one that seems pretty obvious, but oftentimes you're going to want to position in a place and get there and set up before the opponent can actually occupy that space. If there's a high ground, or let's say a midpoint, think like the train in New Queen Street. Soldier 76 can get there before a lot of the opponents can, claim that space, and already start doing pressure in the moments before the enemy set up. On top of that, you can utilize Sprint to get into positions that are very uncommon for other characters to occupy, and because of your heal station, you can occupy that position and keep dealing damage to the enemy from a very strange place. Think King's Row on attack. You can actually wrap all the way around the right side and sprint, jump across the gap all the way to behind the enemy, and now you're going to be behind them on the high ground, and if they don't have characters that can contest you very easily, they're under a ton of pressure and a crossfire, and just doing a little bit of damage is not enough to get you to leave the location. Just one of the many things that Soldier can do that almost no other DPS can. Now, the one thing that's going to happen to a lot of Soldier players is they're going to get chased, right? Genjis, Tracers, Winstons, Wrecking Balls, they're going to come after you. And the best tip that I could give you is to just keep sprinting. Just keep freaking running. Because a lot of times, Soldiers will run a little bit, turn around and like, hey, am I safe now? And then that's when they die. So just make sure that you're sprinting all the way to hell to safety until you know for a fact that you're truly safe. And if you have to turn and you're about to turn around the corner, of course, you can incorporate some amount of helixes so that you can either turn a fight that maybe you were losing it, but now you can just burst them out of nowhere, or do a little bit of damage before you hit and run. Now, let's talk about Soldier's movement, because this is one of the best things about Soldier 76. When you combine not only his sprint, but his heal station and his movement, he becomes incredibly difficult to shoot. One of the things that you need to understand about his fire in particular is that crouch movement and left-right spam, while it moves your character a lot, it's actually not going to decrease your accuracy the same rate as it would if you were playing Cassidy, Ashe, Widow, or a lot of other hit scans. This means that you could incorporate a sway-like motion and alter your headshot hitbox by crouching, making it really hard for these characters to headshot you, while at the same time still being very accurate yourself. This makes you a really hard to deal with threat. And the number one tip I'll give you is look at yourself in a third-person workshop mode so that you can see how much your character's head moves as you incorporate different styles of movement. We're going to be including the workshop code and a link to my movement guide down below if you want to master this aspect of Soldier 76. Now, the last thing that we need to talk about is actually matchups on Soldier. Soldier really has an advantage 1v1 matchup against just about any squishy in the game as long as he gets to set the terms. And the thing about Soldier is he can set the terms because of your mobility, as long as you're making sure to properly distance away from close effective range characters, take note of what cooldowns the opponents have, and set up a 1v1 when you have your cooldowns, notably your heal station, your biotic field. You're going to be able to win the vast majority of 1v1 matchups. Characters like Genji, Cass, Tracer, even characters like Widow, if you can get the drop on her and set up a close, effective off angle or flank on her. There's a lot of characters where on paper, if they're in their optimal range or in their optimal scenario, they can definitely beat you. But as long as you make sure to disengage from every fight that is not favorable and have your cooldowns and engage or get the jump on characters when they're not expecting it, you can rack up the kills, win a ton of 1v1s, and you can also occupy certain areas and spaces on the map, understanding that even if that Genji dashes on you or that Tracer jumps on you, you still have your biotic field, you still have your helix, and if opponents actually invested resources to get to you in the first place, they will already be at a fundamental disadvantage. Like a Tracer that invested 2 blinks to get to you, or a Genji that had to use his deflect and his dash to even get in his effective range from you. Then you can stabilize with your heal, and then you can win or force out the rest of their cooldowns because they use them to get into their effective range. Now, the last but certainly not least aspect of Soldier 76 that can't be ignored is aim. Fantastic aim on Soldier is definitely going to give you a huge advantage against your opposition, and you can reach the ceiling with this character only through aim. However, there isn't one magic pill or simple tip I can give you to develop aim on Soldier 76. What I will say is that you should be doing legitimized practice and warm-up. At the start of every day, make sure that you're putting in the reps with Soldier 76 in a practiced environment, something like Vaxta, and then in a more pressure environment, focusing on 1v1s and the pressure you will face in ranked, which is like tryhard free-for-all, and then just investing as much time and effort as you possibly can into hitting as many shots as you can in your actual comp game. Don't get lazy with Soldier's aim. Don't allow yourself to just start spamming and spraying. Focus on every single shot. Try to hit headshots. Be consistent. Be reliable. And your mechanical skill will improve at a dramatic rate as long as you're being disciplined in trying to hit your shots in your actual game. But do me a huge solid and smash that like, subscribe if you enjoy the content, and definitely check me out on stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the links down below. Thank you for coming by, and I'll see you next time.